We're going to start with Rambam. We're going to do a few Rambams on the general topic of Lifnei Mishuras Hadin, and then we're going to go and see a Gemara that we saw. You realize that all of the halachas of Bar Metzra are very related to the Sisa Yosher Vatov and Lifnei Mishuras Hadin. And we learned in depth the halachas of Bar Metzra. But one of the things I'm seeing in this Chabura as I'm preparing sources on different sugyas is that, hello, Ephraim, okay? I'm seeing many markings in my Gemaras of Gemaras that we saw in different sugyas. There's going to be a lot of overlap, a lot of chazara, so it's really very, very good. But we're going to start with Rambam. Okay, so we want to start with the Rambam Yesodei HaTorah. Rambam Yesodei HaTorah, it's in the first volume. Okay, it's in Mada. Again, we're going to see some Rambams that are more generic Rambams about the importance of Lifnei Mishuras Hadin. Okay, that's where we're going to start. So we're in Rambam, Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah, Perek Hey, Halacha Yud Aleph. We saw this Rambam in the Sugi of Chilul Hashem. Again, I'm hoping that when we see these sources, we're going to see Gemaras in Bar Metzra that we saw when we did the Sugi of Bar Metzra. I hope it'll sort of trigger some chazar for you. So we're in Perek Hey Halacha Yud Aleph, and this was in the Sugya of Chilul Hashem. So the Rambam is in that Sugya, and he says V'yesh Dvarim Acherim Shehein Bichlal Chilul Hashem. V'hu Yase Osam Adam Gadol B'Torah Umefursam B'Chasidus. He's well known as a very exemplary, high-level person, pious, and he does dvarim shehabrios v'rimananim acharav b'shvilo. People are very critical of his behavior. Ve'afal pi she'enan averos. He's not doing something that's technically a violation, but it's a kind of a behavior that people are not comfortable with that behavior. Areza chilel et Hashem. Keep going. Rambam gives examples. Lokach ve'eno nosein dmei mekach li'alter. He pays and he walks out without paying. He's going to pay later. But people look at that and they think he's taking advantage of the fact that he's a Talmid Chacham and that, maybe he'll forget. People say that's not really appropriate. V'hu sheyesh lo v'nimtzu hamochrim tovin oso mekifan. V'hu mekifan. Again, but of course it means that he actually has the money and the storekeeper is trying to get the money and he's avoiding them. So that's, even though halachically he hasn't violated anything, for a Talmid Chacham that's inappropriate behavior. Oh, sheyarbe b'schoko v'achila v'shtia. He has a lot of levity, or he's very indulgent in the food culture, food culture, wine culture. So even though there's nothing technically wrong with it, it's inappropriate behavior for a Talmid Chacham and a Chassid. All right, he doesn't speak so nicely to people. We saw this in the Gemara in Yuma. He's always got a sour face. He doesn't smile. He's not receptive to people in a positive way. So for an average person, okay, Beseder, so you didn't violate anything, okay, but for the Talmid Chacham and the Chassid, it's inappropriate. Okay, v'kiyotze b'dvarim ha'elu hakol lefi godlo shel Chacham tzarich sheyedaktek al atzmo v'yaseh lifnim mishuras hadin. See, so the Rambam was talking earlier. The person didn't violate anything. They didn't violate any halach, he didn't violate any din. So he was behaving al pi din. And the Talmid Chacham and the Chassid is required to go beyond the din. V'chenim diktek hachacham al atzmo v'hoya diburo benachas im abrios v'daito meureves imohem umekablim b'sever parim yafos. Each of these things is a nice thing to do. But you can never go to an individual person and say you're chayiv to do it. It's a good thing to do. But for a Talmid Chacham, he's required to do it. V'nelav mehem ve'ena ha'olvim, mechabed lahem ve'afilu lemekilin, lo nosei b'nosein be'emuna, lo yarbe be'arichus ha'amei ha'aretz v'shivasan, v'lo yireh tamid ela osek b'torah atuf tzitzis muchtar b'tfilin, ve'ose b'chol masav lifnim mishuras hadin. The Talmid Chacham, the Chassid, he's supposed to, on an ongoing basis, this is a more global statement, he should behave beyond the letter of the law. But there's a caveat here, and we're going to see the Kesef Mishnah focuses on this also. V'hu shelo yisrachik harbe v'lo yishtome. See, you could take this to an extreme. I don't have any involvement with people. I think they call it in the yeshiva world, they call it a tzolnik. Okay, that he's all bunched up and he doesn't enjoy anything and he doesn't involve with people. He wants to be a person that people praise him and they want to be around him, which is not somebody that is always distancing himself from people. This is the Gemara in Yuma that we saw quite a while ago. The idea is that a Jew should be, that people should want to be around a Talmid Chacham, and God says, that's who I want to glorify myself with. Let's just see the Kesef Mishnah. It's the second section. The Kesef Mishnah starts at the top, but then at the bottom there's another little section. It starts, Osha Diburei Mabrios Eino Benachat Ad Sof HaPerek. So this is
Rabbi Karlinsky.
Yes.
Before the Kesef Mishnah, what do you feel the Rambam is adding the second time in the second section when he says another time v'osa b'kol ma'asav lifnei mishurat adin?
I'm not sure what I see. When was it the first time that you were bothered by?
The first time is when he said,
I see. Right, I see what you're saying. Yes, you're saying.
What is repeating it there?
Right. Okay. Okay. Again, the first one was not to do the negative behaviors. Okay, right. And then he talks about positive. Okay. Again, okay. We're not. Again, I hear what you're asking. Unfortunately, we can't be medayik quite so much in the Rambam. The purpose of this Rambam now is just to get the general idea of lefnei mishuras adin, that a person. Okay. It's ideal. Again, by the way, he's talking here about the Talmid Chacham and the Chassid. He's telling him that you have to do this. If you don't do this, you may not be. You're almost violating. Okay, and that's the idea, is that sometimes there's certain requirements to behave lifnei mishuras hadin. Again, this is a little bit more general, and it's more nebulous. But let's see what the Kesef Mishnah says. Diborim abrios eino benachas atzof haperek. Grace v'sof Yuma krova lashon Rabbeinu. We saw that Gemara. That's the Gemara in Yuma. Okay, about a person who's masov Masova matano be'emuna, etc. Mahabrios omros olav ashrei aviv shalim do Torah, right? Ashrei rabo shalim do Torah, ashrei aviv shalim do Torah, as opposed to the opposite of oilo aviv shalim do Torah, oilo aviv rabo shalim do Torah. V'shi'ir haloshon kachu, v'osa b'chol masav lifnei mishuras hadin bitnai. He's explaining what the Rambam meant by putting those two things together. Bitnai shelo yitrachik harbe mishuras hadin. Lifnei mishuras hadin can't be extreme. Lifnei mishuras hadin has to be a little bit beyond the letter of the law, a little bit beyond the line. Litzad tov ad sheyireh she'eno min hayishuv o ad sheyishtomim, because a person could go lifnei mishuras hadin to such an extreme that it would look like he's just he's not shaykh to us, and that's not appropriate. Average. We're going to see this in the Rambam in a minute in Hilchos Deos. Okay. Meaning you want to do it a little bit better than the requirement so that people will praise you. But if you do it to an extreme, then people aren't going to praise you, and therefore you haven't accomplished anything. Okay, so this is one general idea, and we're going to see this now in the Rambam in Hilchos Deos, that even when you go beyond the letter of the law in behavior, you don't go to an extreme. We don't go to an extreme. Okay, let's see now. Open up Hilchos Deos. Okay, and the Hilchos Deos is Perek Aleph, and we're going to see Halachas Dalet and Hey. So this Perek in the Rambam is very famous, because it brings lahalacha what the Rambam talks about in Shmona Prakim, that a person's midos are all supposed to be balanced. They're supposed to be in the middle. All right, that a person is born with a personality. Some people are stingy. I'm in Perek Aleph in Hilchos Deos.
Excuse me for my burut. Where do I find this? It's in the same.
It's right after Yesodei HaTorah.
Oh, okay.
Right after Yesodei HaTorah. So,
all right.
The Rambam writes that a person is born with a personality. Some people are stingy. Some people are generous. Some people are type A. Some people are introverts. Some people are extroverts. And the Rambam says the ideal of a person is not to just follow their instinct, but to be in the middle and to work on being balanced. Right? That's the Rambam in Shmona Prakim, and he brings this here, lahalacha, okay, in the beginning of Perek Dalet. We are going to go to halacha Dalet. He brings it in Perek Aleph. We're going to go to halacha Dalet. Okay, haderech hayishara. Okay, everybody see where I am? Perek Aleph, halacha Dalet, Hilchos Deos. Haderech hayishara himida benonis. Shebechol deya v'deya, in Rambam's terminology, deya is a midah. Shebechol deya v'deya, mikol hadeos sheyesh lo la'ada. In other words, you're not supposed to be too aggressive or too passive, not too generous, but not too stingy. Okay, you're not supposed to be too hysterical, but you can't just be very calm when the house is burning down. Everything has to be in balance. How do I know what's the balance? Equidistant from the two extremes. That's in the middle. Lefikach, tzivu chachamim arishonim, sheyehei adam sham de'osav tamid. You always have to assess your midos. Umishayer osam, umechavin osam b'derech ha'imtzais. You always have to try to find the balance. You have to act in a balanced way. And again, balance comes from the decision comes from your intelligence. That's why the Rambam calls it deos. Okay, and by the way, that's why we call it midos. Midos is a measure. You have to measure the behavior. What's an appropriate behavior? Kadesh yeshalim gufo. Ketzad. Here's the examples that we mentioned. Lo yehi ba'al chema noach lichos. You can't have a short temper, always get angry. V'lo kemei shenu margish. All right, there's some people that if the kid spills the milk, it's already hysterical. The world's coming to an end. Okay, so you can't be like that. On the other hand, I use the following example. You're also not allowed to be, okay, the milk spilled, no big deal. I'm easy. All right, the glass broke on the floor, no problem. I'm easy. The house is burning down. Okay, no problem. I'm easy. No. There's certain things you got to get excited about. That's what the Rambam is saying. You can't be a one who loses their cool all the time, but you got to not just be so passive and insensitive.
But Rabbi,
you are allowed to get angry at somebody if there is a purpose to stopping somebody from doing inappropriate behavior. You can't. You have to have drives. You have to have a drive. Otherwise, you're just depressed. One of the clinical indications of depression is that the person has no drives. Okay, you need to satiate yourself. You need to to go after what you need for physical existence. You can't be a workaholic, but you got to work. Okay, you can't be too stingy, but also but you can't just give away anytime somebody knocks on the door. You're giving away all your money. You gotta do it in balance. You gotta be with logic. All right, obviously a wealthy person gives away more than a poor person. But if the poor person looks at the wealthy person and sees how much he's giving and says, "Oh, I got to give away that amount," so that's not balanced. You can't be too much levity and comedy, but you can't be depressed all the time. Again, all of the midos have to be in balance. V'derech zehi derech hachachamim kol adam shedeosav deos benonis mimutzaos nikra chacham. So that's the chacham. That's the wise person. His midos are in balance. Now goes on the Rambam. Umishu midagyek al atzmo biyoser. But a person wants to be really meticulous. V'yisrachek mideya benonis me'at. he's going to deviate a little bit from the mimutza, from the median point, from the middle. Litzad zeh o litzad zeh, nikra chasid. Then that's already a person. There's a chacham, a tzaddik, but a chasid goes beyond the letter of the law. How do you do that? By going away from the middle to one side a little. What's the example? Ketzad. Misha yisrachik migova halev ad hakatzeh achron via shafal ruach biyoseh nikra chasid. Zehu midas hachasidus. You lower your arrogance. It's not in the middle. Okay, v'im nisrachik ad ha'emtza bilvad v'yihiyeh anav nikra chacham v'zu midas chachma al derech zu shar kol hadeos. The same way, he's going to give some examples. Chasidim arishonim ayu matim deos shalahem miderech ha'imtzais. Chasidim used to tilt their midos a little bit away from the middle. Keneged shtei tzavos, depending on which midah. For example, there's generosity and there's stinginess. So the chassid tilted a little bit towards the generosity, right? Why? Because the instinct is to be stingy, all right? And the person the person who's in the middle between anger and taking it easy, you tilt a little bit to not getting so angry because the instinct is always to get angry when something goes wrong. So that's the chassid is tilting a little bit away from the middle. V'yesh deah shematin also keneged tzachim v'zehu lifnim mishuras hadin. Here's the phrase we're looking for, because the din is to be in the middle. Din is exactly right, and you want to be a little bit over the line, but you got to decide which direction you want to be over the line. Obviously, if a person says, "Oh, I don't want to be in the middle. I want to be a little extra stingy," that's not lifnim mishur. That's outside. Okay, umitzuben on halachas b'dvarim elo habenoni v'hem dvarim hayisharim shenemar b'halacha b'drachav. This replicates God's ways. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that there's an idea of lifnim mishur sadin also in midos. Okay, we're going to change volumes now, and we're going to go to Gzela v'Aveda. So Gzela v'Aveda. So Gzela v'Aveda is in Nezikin. Okay, and Nezikin, if you want to know which Sefer Nezikin is, so Nezikin is in Sefer Nezikin. There's a Sefer Nezikin, and this is and Gzela v'Aveda is in Sefer Nezikin. Let's see. There's Niskei Mamon, and then comes Gzela v'Aveda. So it's right after Niskei Mamon. It's the second section in Sefer Nezikin, and we want Perek Yud Aleph. Maybe we want Perek Yud Aleph in Gzela v'Aveda. I'll give everybody a chance to find it. And what we want is, we're going to start with Halacha Vav. This has to do with returning the lost objects. That's why it's in Hilchos Gzela v'Aveda. Okay? So you remember our rule about lost objects. Says the Rambam. Everybody, do I need to wait for another minute, or everybody's getting it? Hilchos Gzela, it's in Sefer Nezikin, Hilchos Gzela v'Aveda, Perek Yud Aleph, Halacha Vav. Okay? All right. So, Ir sheYisraelim v'akum daridba. So we have a mixed city, Jews and non-Jews. Umechsa akum umechsa Yisrael, meaning there's no noticeable majority. It's half and half. Umatza ba'aveda, and he found a lost object. Notel umachris, he can't keep it because it's 50% that it belonged to a Jew. The imba Yisrael v'nosan simaneh chayav lahachzir, and certainly if a Jew comes and gives him a simon, he has to give it back, because even though we're not sure it belonged, even when you found it, you weren't sure it might have been a non-Jew, but since it's 50-50, you have to be machmir and assume and worry that it might be a Jew, and therefore you're machris. Okay. Okay, so who's that from? Pinchas. Pinchas, we lost you? No. Okay.
Yeah. My connection went out.
Okay. So now we're in Halacha Zayin. Okay, we're Gzela v'Aveda Yud Perek Yud Aleph Halacha Zayin. What about Hayarov Hayar Aku? What about a city where the majority are non-Jews? So now when you found something, there's a majority, there's a rove telling you it belonged to a non-Jew, and a non-Jewish object, there's no chiyuv of Hashavas Aveda. Im matza b'makom min ha'ir sherov ha'metzuyim sham Yisrael, chayv lahachris. Meaning, even though there's a city that has the majority of non-Jews, London is majority non-Jews, okay? But Golders Green is majority Jews. So even though the city is majority non-Jews, the area is Jewish. And therefore, if you find it, you got to be machris. Avali matzah bisratya uplatya gedola bebate knisios bebate midrashos sha'akum mitzuyin sham. But if you found it in made in public areas, okay, right, that the majority of the people who traverse that area are non-Jewish, okay, uvechol makom sha'rabi mitzuyin sham, or it's not a local, it's a place where there's huge foot traffic, harei hametziu shalo, then you're allowed to keep it. Okay, so in other words, if it's in a place, what's the calculation here? There are two possibilities. Either the non-Jew lost it, in which case you can keep it, or the Jew lost it, but he's miyayesh because there's so much foot traffic that he has no hope of ever getting it back. I used to use the example, I think when we did this in the Chabura a year or two ago, right? I used the example of Dodger Stadium or Yankee Stadium, where the likelihood of getting it back is zero, and you guys informed me that today there's a huge amount of stuff in the lost and found. So it's possible that somebody who loses it may not be miyayesh. Okay, but if you lose it on the streets of, I don't know, the streets of Manhattan, you probably don't expect to get it back. Okay, so there's an assumption of yesh. So v'afilu bo Yisrael, after that, since I don't have to return it, and I bo Yisrael v'nosan simaneha, but after I found it and I went home with it because the halacha was I'm allowed to keep it, and I was not machriz, a Jew comes knocking on my door and gives me a siman. So even that, he's harei hametzia shalo. And as the Rambam writes, harei hametzia shalo, afilu bo Yisrael v'nosan sim. That's the halacha. What's the reason for that, din? Meaning the assumption is that he was miyayish, because since it's mostly non-Jews, and the non-Jew has no mitzvah sashavas haveda, just like we have no mitzvah to return to a non-Jew, the non-Jew has no mitzvah to return to us, and therefore the guy will assume that a non-Jew found it, and he will never get it back. So there was an assumption of yeush. Now he's coming knocking on the door saying it's mine, you don't have to give it back. Because the assumption is he was Messiahish, and as we saw in the Gemara, even if he stands there telling you I wasn't Messiahish, we don't listen to him. That's not realistic. But continues the Rambam, Harotza leilech b'derech hatov v'hayoshar v'osa lifnim mishuras adin machzir es haveda l'Yisrael k'sheyiten es simoneh. What does it sound like from the Rambam? I have to, or it's a good idea?
Sounds like you have to.
You should.
Everybody agrees with that?
No. There's harotze.
Yeah, I think Pinchas, it says harotze. That's the
Not
first
voluntary.
It's up to you. Harotze leilech b'derech hatov v'hayashar. Again, then osel and he adds. You see, if he wouldn't have added the next few words, Pinchas, I might be able to agree with you. But he adds the next few words. The osel lifnim mishuras hadin. So that by definition, it's not the din.
Yeah, no, it's not. That's definitely not. Yeah.
And Machzor Aved L'Yisrael Kishida Simoneh. We're going to see in the Shulchan Aruch that not everybody agrees with the Rambam. Okay, we're going to be in the tour on this sugya as if you remember when we did Hashavas Aveda. Okay, well, but right now the Rambam is clear. Okay, next, but 1 second, let me see how much further we want to go. I want to do Ches, and then we'll skip to Yud Zayin. Ches. Matzah be'ir zeh sheruba akum. Here's an interesting question. So if you found a barrel of wine in a city that's mostly non-Jews, are you allowed to drink it? Or do you have to assume that it's non-Jewish wine?
Not allowed to drink it.
Why not?
First of all, if it's really yayin nesa, if the risk is it's really yayin nesa, then it's a deraisa. No, it's a serious.
Okay, let's assume, though, that nowadays we don't even have yayin nesa, but it's tam yena. But there's a rov. You said it right. There's a rov. And the rov tells you that it probably came from a non-Jew. And if it came from a non-Jew, you're not allowed to drink it. Okay?
The butcher.
What?
Same thing as the butcher, the Teisha Chanuyot, right? And most of them are Goyish Chanuyot.
Wait, you know what? Let's not mix that in because there's a different point we want to make. I'm not saying you're wrong, but let's not mix that in. So again, matzah be'irzu sheruba akum achava shel yayin the yena asur b'hana'a. Wait a minute, what about the barrel? Am I allowed to keep the barrel? I'm not allowed to drink the wine. Can I keep the barrel? Well, what do we assume? Who did it belong to? A non-Jew. So do I have to return it? No. Mutter mishum aveda. So I'm allowed to keep the barrel with the assumption that it belonged to a non-Jew. All right? But again, so I'm starting with the assumption that this barrel of wine that I found is a non-Jewish barrel of wine. So I can't drink it and I can keep the barrel. Well, what happens in Ba Yisrael v'nosan simaneha? What happens if a non-Jew came and gave simanim on the barrel? So now what do I know? What do I now know?
It was once owned by a Jew.
I don't say once owned. He's giving you simanim that he lost the barrel. He's proving to you that the barrel was his. Okay, we don't assume that a non Ephraim. I don't think that we sell intentionally, okay, expensive kosher wine to a non-Jew. Right? The guy who has the barrel, he doesn't intentionally sell it to the guy bought a barrel of wine. Okay, he's not going to sell it to the non-Jew. The barrel of kosher wine in those days was much more expensive. So the assumption is that if you give you a simon, now I know that the barrel of wine was lost by a Jew.
Okay.
So now can I drink it?
Wasn't really ready.
Well, why couldn't I drink it before? Because there was a rove. I had to rely on the rove that it came from a non-Jew. But now I know that it came from a Jew. So am I allowed to drink it? The answer is yes. The halacha is very clear. Mutter b'shtia. I'm allowed to drink it. Do I have to give back the barrel? So so you found a barrel of wine in a city that's mostly non-Jewish. You're not allowed to drink it. The assumption is it came from a non-Jew. Comes along a Jew and gives you a simon that he lost it.
But
am I allowed to drink it?
So he says yes, but really on top, right, 2 lines above or 3 lines above, it says he should give it to him. He should give it back to him. Why doesn't he say that here? That's what I'm asking.
Well, you're skipping
it's Rov Goyim, but a Jew comes and gives a simon and says it's mine. So you should give it to the Jew.
You're not wrong, but you lost sight of the point that the Rambam is making. The Rambam in here is not telling you what to do about giving it back. When you assumed it was a non-Jew, you can't drink it and you keep the barrel. The chiddush of proving that it belonged to a Jew is you can drink it. What do I do with it? That's already a different question. Now you go back to say you want to behave with you don't want to behave with Jerusalem. That's not part of this discussion. The Rambam's chiddush here is that the simon that the Jew gives, does it force me to give it back? Definitely not, because he was miyayesh. But it allows me to drink it. That's the point of this Rambam.
So the diuk is on mutter b'shtia.
Exactly, mutter b'shtia.
I find that a little surprising.
I'm listening.
Because
I'm listening.
Because the whole Hashavas Aveda and when a simon is presented and all that, we said is a chiddush, and it's right. It's a chiddush. Our default would have been no. You keep whatever it is. If you finders keepers. So the Torah says you have to return it if the guy presents a simon and proves that it's his. But the issue of Yayin Nesach or Yayin Stam or whatever it is, that you're not allowed to drink if it comes from a goy, Mehecha tasted it's the same mechanics that makes it mutter to you. In other words, I would say that you can keep the barrel, but you can't drink the wine. I would say
that's exactly the default that the Rambam moved you off of, which the Gemara does, because you're being taught the power of simon. You're being taught the power of simon. Let me show you where this goes. We talked about this in the Hilchas Hashavas Aveda, okay? But it works in 2 directions. The Torah has a special pasuk that you keep it adrosh achicha oso till the Jew comes And what do we learn from that? That you are required darshehu she'eno ramai. That's what we learned from Adrosh Achicha also. Darshehu she'eno ramai. Said Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz, we had Elam Mitzias Balachirim from him. He said, what did the Torah teach you? Darshehu she'eno ramai. A guy walks and knocks on my door and says, I heard you found a wallet. Yeah, I found a wallet. It's mine. Are you allowed to keep it? The guy says it's his.
He has to give a simon. Anybody could come and say it's mine.
There's no simon. So, Daniel, let's role play. You found the wallet?
Yeah.
Is it yours?
Nope.
Oh, so you're holding something that you admit is not yours.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I'm coming and telling you it's mine. On what right do you have to hold something that you admit is not yours when somebody else is telling you it's his?
Because I'm a shomer for the true owner, and the true owner has to show up and give a simon in order to get it back.
You just added in Adrosh Achicha Oso. You just added in Darshehu She'eno Ramai.
Right.
That's a chiddush of the Torah. So I'm saying without the pasuk Darshehu She'eno Ramai, you have no right to keep it because it's definitely not yours, and I say it's mine.
You mean
So that's,
sounds like a bari v'shema kilo? I'm shema and you're a bari.
no, you're a bari. You're a bari that it's not yours. You're not a shema. You're a bari that it's not yours. You want to say it's a shema? Maybe it's not mine. Okay, but I say it is mine, and it's definitely not yours. This was Reb Chaim Shmulevitz's chiddush about what Adrosh Achicha also tells you. So now that I have Darshehu She'eno Ramai, now your default is. And if you learn the Sugya Elam Mitzias carefully, there's a machlokes whether simanim deoraisa or not. But if simanim are not deoraisa, so how do I ever return a lost object? Only with edim. But there's a shita that simanim are deoraisa, and that was the chiddush of the Torah. Simanim is verification as good as edim. It's as good as edim. And therefore, Ephraim, we can extrapolate. I hear your default, and I hear why you're asking the question. Right, but this also, by the way, this also comes into play when we want to know whether a woman's husband dies. Right? If the woman's husband dies, and we're not sure if it's the woman's husband, can we rely on simanim, or do we have to actually see the face and somebody has to know? Or we say, well, we know that there are simanim on the body that seem to replicate the guy, even though we don't see his face. And the halacha is you rely on simanim. So you see that simanim has a power. Okay, I hear your question, but the Rambam is going with the assumption that's the chiddush of simanim, and that simanim is considered a verification, and therefore it's a verification that the wine was lost by a Jew, so I can drink it. Returning it, if it was in a place where the assumption was yeush, halachically I don't have to return it, as Daniel pointed out. The earlier halacha says you want to go lifnei mishur, so then you can return it. If not, you can't. You're not chayav to return it because you're allowed to keep it. Okay. All right, let's skip now to halacha yud zayin. And this is now you see what the Rambam says. So the Rambam said earlier that clearly, if it's in a place where there's goyim, the assumption he's not eno chayav lahachris, he's allowed to keep it, harei shelo. And if a Jew comes and gives a simon, you don't have to give it back. That's the basic din. Says the Rambam in Yud Zayin, haholech b'derech hatov v'hayashar. So the Rambam's not talking here about the giving it back to this with a simon after Yeush. He's talking about something else. He's talking about the zaken ve'ena lefi chvodo. Right, Rashi was walking down. Right, we had the example of Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Shmuel. Right, he's walking down the street. He's a Talmud Chacham. All right. He's not mechuyev. All right, you can imagine a big Rosh Yeshiva with the frock and the Hamburg and everything, all right, and too much bakim, and he sees a dog running loose. He sees a guy's dog running loose. It's not really lefi chvodo that he's going to take the dog and start leading the dog back to the house through the street. Yeah, and the Gemara gives that example about whether if he finds it in the field, if he finds it in the city, does he have to lead the donkey back through the city? It's eno lefi chvodo. But says the Rambam, and this was what we saw. There's a pasuk because Tosfos said, "Why do I need the pasuk? I need the pasuk to tell me that since everybody else is chayiv and you're potter, Lifnim Mishuras Hadin says that you should also do it. But the Rambam here doesn't make it a requirement. The Rambam makes it an option. Read the words. Haholech b'derech hatov ve'ayosher v'osa lifnim Mishuras Hadin machzer es aveda b'chol mokom afal pi she'en l'fi kvodo. So it doesn't say Chayev. It says if he's going b'derech hayosher. So I think that if you remember the Gemara had a kasha on Rabbi Shmuel. Why are you doing this? And the Gemara said he decided to go lifnim mishuras hadin. It was his decision to go lifnim mishuras hadin. It's clear that he wasn't chayiv to do it. That's the whole definition of lifnim mishuras hadin. So we got to remember that lifnim mishuras hadin exactly means it's not the din. And we're going to have a couple of exceptions, but in general, lifnim mishuras hadin is exactly what it says. It's lifnim mishuras hadin. Okay. All right, now we want to run to the Rambam. It's now we're going to jump to Hilchos Rotzeach. Okay, so Hilchos Rotzeach is what is in which Sefer? Just a minute, I got it marked here. It's also in Sefer.
No?
It's also in Ezekiel. No, it's also in Ezekiel. Rotzeach b'shmiras hanefesh. It's also in the same Sefer in Ezekiel. All right, and what we want is Perek Yud Gimel. Perek Yud Gimel. Okay, again, this is going to be the Rabbi Shmuel Gemara about helping somebody whose animal is helping somebody load or unload the burden. All right, I'll get Perek Yud Gimel Halacha Aleph. Mi shepaga b'chaveiro b'derech ubehemto rovetzet tachat ma'asa. The animal's collapsing under the load. So what does the pasuk say? The pasuk says you got to help him. Even if the owner of the donkey overloaded his donkey and that's why he's collapsing, so there's a mitzvahs essay. That is a din. And you can't just unload it and run away. Shenemar hakem takem imo zu mitzvahs essay acheres. Okay, v'minichu nivhal, meaning you just left him in the lurch. I helped him unload and I walked away. These guys in the lurch. V'lo pirek v'lo toan bitel mitzvahs essay. The over al mitzvahs lo taseh. It's a bitel essay and a lo taseh. Shenemar lo tirech chamor achercha rovetz tachas masao. So if you didn't help him, you violated a lav and a bittul essay. So you've got to help him. Now, what about hayakohen? The Rabbeim rovetzes beves hakvaros. So the animal's in the cemetery. And you're a kohen who's not allowed to go into the cemetery. Okay? So what is the halacha? Eino metame la, kishem she'eino metame la hashiv aveda. Just like we said in an earlier parak, is that a kohen doesn't go into a beis hakvaros to do mitzvahs hashavas aveda. Okay, so that's where does that come from? Maybe we'll just remind ourselves. We saw this at the time. Hopefully, we'll just remind you what happened to Esei Dochelo Taseh. What happened to Esei?
He has more mitzvahs.
What happened? No, there's an Esei hashavas aveda. Zelo Taseh don't become tamei. That's the chiddush of the Torah, hitalamta. That's why it said the ambiguous language of hitalamta, that's what opened the door that sometimes you don't return it. One of them is a kohen beis hakvaros, one of them is a zaken ve'eno lefi chvodo, and therefore says the Rambam. So a kohen doesn't go into the cemetery, and a zaken doesn't get involved in helping unload a donkey because that's not what a zaken normally does. Zaken ein darko liton velifrok hol ve'en lefichvodo, and therefore because of that he's putter, and it comes again from the pasuk of italamta. Zakla, but here's the rule. How do I decide whether it's a zaken ve'en lefichvodo or not? Kol she'ilu haya shalo haya toinu porek. You're a Talmid Chacham, and if it was your donkey, you would do it. So then, hareza chayiv lito v'lifrok b'shel chavera. In other words, you can't say, "Oh, I'm a zaken l'fein v'kvodo," and everyone's doing it, and then when it happens to your donkey, you do it. Okay. Now, so therefore, the din is that if you normally wouldn't do it for yourself because you're a zaken, ve'en l'fein v'kvodo, you're not mechuyev to do it for your friend. ve'im haya chasid ve'ose lifnei mishuras hadin, afilu haya hanasi hagado ve'ra behemas chavero v'etzas tachas maso shel teven okanim v'chiyotze ben porek v'toen imo. And that's exactly what we got from the Gemara and Rabbi Shmuel. But again, listen to the words. Are you chayiv, or it's a good thing?
Good thing.
That's the lashon. Okay. Im haya chasid ve'osa lifnei mishuras hadin. By the way, the word chasid is misrepresented today in the Hasidic world. Okay, because in theory, the tzaddik is on a lower level than the chassid. The tzaddik does what he has to do. A chassid goes beyond the letter of the law. The chassid is a higher level, pious. He does chesed. He does what he's not mechuyev to do. So that's why it says he's a chassid, meaning he's going beyond the letter of the law. So lifnim mishuras hadin. So you see clearly there's no chiyuv, but it's a good thing to do. Okay. All right. That was what we wanted to see in the Rambam. Good. We have a few minutes left today, so let's now open up Bava Basra. We're going to start the Bava Basra. And we've seen this before, by the way. This is a Bava Basra we saw in the sugyas that we had. But again, as we like to do, we're going to approach it from a different perspective. So the Gemara's Bava Basra, Yud Beis Amud Beis. Okay, and this relates to Lifnim Mishuras Hadin, but it also relates to Kofin al Midas Zdom. Remember what Midas Zdom is? Ze nene v'ze lo chaser. Ze nene v'ze lo chaser. So you would certainly say that there's an asisa hayashar v'hatov there. The question is, can we force it? In general, lifnim mishuras hadin can't be forced. By definition, it's lifnim mishuras hadin. So, but let's open up Bava Basra Yud Beis Amud Beis and see a couple of cases of Kopet al Midas Dom. Okay, so. We'll just go back to the. You know what? Let's see the two dots. It's a quarter of the way up the page. We're going to see one halacha that's not directly related to what we want, but it is on a certain level. There we see the two dots. Amar Rav Huna, Abreda Rav Yoshua. Quarter of the way up the page. We saw this Gemara, by the way. Okay, a long time ago. Pshita, the din is very clear. By the way, when you see an Amor saying Pshita, it doesn't mean that it was, if it's so obvious, why are you telling it to me? Right? We always have that problem. The Gemara asks the Kasha on a Mishnah Pshita, why'd you tell it to me? That was my default. Don't understand. When an Amor says Pshita, it doesn't mean default. He's also saying a Chiddush. But he's saying it's obvious that this Chiddush is true. Pshita, it's obvious to me, even though there's an issue. The fact that he's saying Pshita and he gives you a scenario means there's an issue. But he's saying the outcome of the resolution of this issue is clear to me. What is that? Chelek bechor v'chelek pashut. So you know that in the Dinei Torah, a bechor gets twice as much as the single son. Okay? So Yavina le'echad metzra. What is Yavina le'echad metzra? So says Rashi. No. No Rashi, I'll have to tell you outside. Yeah, no Rashi. Oh, yes, there is. Yeah, it's up. It's way up. Pshita. It's all the way up. Pshita. Okay, it's a quarter of the way down in the narrow lines of Rashi. Pshita chelik b'chor v'chelik pashut. What happened? What's going on here? Shnei chalakim shabachor notel. Echad mishum b'chora ve'echad mishum pshitus. So we have a field. Okay, let's say we have a field of 3,000 meters. So the bechor is entitled to 2,000 meters. And the pashut is entitled to 1,000 meters. Yavina le'echad metzra ze etzel ze. I'm sorry. I should have said it better. There are three fields. All identical in value. All right. So the bechor is entitled to 2 fields, and the pashut is entitled to 1 field. So normally, when we have, let's say, 4 brothers, let's take the bechor out of it for a moment. 4 brothers, 4 fields, perfect, all of them exactly equal in value. What do we do?
One gets their own chilek.
Well, Daniel, then Ephraim, what do you do, Daniel?
You split it into four.
No, but there are 4 fields. Oh, every field gets split into quarters?
No. Each one gets one of those. Everyone gets one field.
How do we decide which field you get and which field I get?
So
what if we both want the same field? They're all identical in value.
So if there's some sort of Maitzer issue that one of
no, nothing. I'm starting
lottery.
No, there we go. Is that what you were going to say, Ephraim? A lottery. That's the fair way to do it. We have a lottery. Oh, everybody agree that that's reasonable?
Yeah.
Good. So now we have 3 fields. We have 3 fields. And there are 3 adjacent fields. So if there would be 3 brothers, and each brother wants the same field, we make a lottery. Well, now we have a Bechor who's entitled to 2 out of the 3 fields. So the brother who's entitled to 1 field says, lottery. Because maybe I'll get the middle field and you'll get the 2 outside fields. What do you want? You want 2 adjacent fields, right? You're the boy. You want 2 adjacent fields. Okay? So I want a lottery because if I get that middle field, boy, I'm going to be able to get a premium by selling it to you. Everybody hear the issue?
Not going to go.
Okay. So says the Gemara, don't worry. Says the Gemara. Says Rav Huna Breda Rav Yeshua. Pshita. It's clear. Chelik bechor v'chelik pashut yavinan le'echad metzra. If, okay, that what you do is you say, wait a minute, the bechor definitely gets 2 adjacent fields. You can have a lottery which of the outside fields he gets, but he definitely gets the middle field. What about Yavamai? What about a Yavam from the Bechor? Amar Baya, he, my time of Bechor, Kaya Rachmana, Rabba Amar Krava Haya Bechor, I also give Bechor, there's a machlokas. What do you do with a Yavam? Does the Yavam have the same rights as the brother? Okay, so that's just background. But the main thing we wanted was that if that the Bechor has a right to demand that he gets adjacent fields. The only lottery is going to be which outside field goes to him and which outside field goes to the other brother. But the brother cannot demand a lottery on all 3 fields because maybe I'll get the middle field. That he can't do. Okay?
Question. What is the Yavam?
A Yavam is the brother of a man dies without children.
Yeah.
So his wife is not allowed to marry, and there's a brother. The wife has to marry the brother, her brother-in-law, the brother of the deceased.
I know what a Yavam is, but in the context of Yerusha, how does it work?
Because the Yavam now steps in and he gets the rights. He's the inheritor. He's a brother.
Of his brother.
He inherits his brother's property.
I know he inherits his brother's property as well. I know he inherits his brother's wife.
No, he gets his property.
No, he also inherits the estate. He's the brother. He's a brother. He inherits. Okay, again, let's not get into the halachos of Yavam. The answer is he inherits and therefore he has rights. Okay, and the question is, does he have the same right to demand adjacency or he has a lower level rights? Okay, what we did is the next halacha. Okay? Hahu, now it's a real story. Hahu de Zovan Ara Ametzra de Beinashia. There are brothers. Okay? And there's an estate of the father. Let's say there's 4 brothers. Okay? And Ruvain, one of the brothers, buys a field next to the estate. He buys a field next to the estate. And then the father dies. So now what's supposed to happen to the estate? There are 4 fields. One of those fields happens to be next to one of the Reuven's field. Reuven bought a field next to one of his father's fields. Well, he can do that. Okay. I mean, he bought a field next to one of his father's fields. Could the father have gotten him off? I don't know. But he bought a field. He's got a field next to one of the father's fields. And then the father dies. And now there's 4 fields. What does he want? They got to divide the 4 fields up. So what was our default? How do you divide 4 fields when there's 4 brothers and 4 fields and anybody wants each field? Lottery. So can the brothers demand lottery? Or does Ruvain, who now owns a field next to one of the fields of the estate, demand that field?
Bar Matzra?
He's so again, Hahu de Zovan Ara Ametzra de Bein Nashaya. He bought a field bordering the estate. Kika Palgu. Now they're coming to divide up the state. So what does Reuven want? He obviously wants that if he's entitled to one of the 4 fields, he wants the field next to his field. He said, I want you to divide the estate. Give me the field without lottery. He wants it without lottery.
Well, assuming that all 4 fields are more or less equal,
yes,
from the laws of sale in Bar Matzah, it should be in a Kavachomer, then Yerusha should be able to get it.
But we're not. No, we're not there. We're not talking about sale. We're not talking sale.
I know what I'm saying.
No, absolutely not. You forgot the reason for din on the sale. The reason for din on the sale is that when you buy a field next to my field, okay, I can come and give you the money and say, go buy another field. But that doesn't work here because the other brothers can say, we want lottery. We're entitled to lottery. I want you to appreciate there's a claim we want lottery. So Amar Le, Pligu Li Ametra, Amar Rabba. So Rabba agrees with Pinchas. Kigonzeh Kofin al Miras Dom. Because we say to the other brothers, listen, what difference does it make? It doesn't matter to you. All the fields are of equal value. So why are you dafka demanding lottery where Reuven may end up with a field far away? Let him have the field here because it doesn't matter to you. Kofin al Miras Dom. Zenene v'zelo chaser. Okay? Pinchas likes that. That was Pinchas's argument. Let's see Rashi. The Zavin Ara Ametzer de Nasha. It's a little bit beyond halfway down. It's right across from the pasuk of Eov Ish. Kana karka eitzel sade aviv. So he bought a field next to his father's field. It could, by the way, it could even be one field. It could be one big field. And they got to divide it into 4 pieces. And they got to figure out who gets which part of the field. So we're kofin al minas dom. Nene v'zelo chaser. That is Rabba's opinion. Meaning when they're coming to divide the field in 4 pieces, we always say Reuven gets the part that's next to his without a lottery. Maskif lo Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef has an attack. Amri le, the other 3 brothers can say to Reuven, Ma'alinan le iluya ki nachse debe Marion. We don't think these fields are equal. We think that this part of the field is worth more money than the other parts. So therefore, you got to compensate us because it's not purely equal. You think there's that part of the field or that one of the 4 fields is of equal value to the others? We say it's not. We want to say, what's the lashon malin le iluya ki nachse debe Marion? So Ber Marion was a wealthy person. And he never sold land unless you paid him a premium. He was a guy that you want my land, you got to pay a premium. So the brothers are allowed to say, we view this land as extra valuable, and we're not going to forego this piece, our rights to that, without premium. Meaning, what they're trying to do is squeeze the brother down. They're going to say, you want that part, you got to give us compensation. In other words, it's not midas zdom.
It sounds like midas zdom. It sounds like it. Like, do they have to have proof? No, they can't just say that. There has to be some sort of raglaim l'davar, no?
Amrule Rashi. Achi ma'alin amru achi ma'alin leil iluye. Lanu hi mishubachat ki karkaosav shel bar Marion shahayu meulos. That they were very valuable. Umistavra de Rav Yosef. Now he's going to make some conditions. Besada Baal sheyicholim lomer pa'amim zumiz rabechas mishar saras. As Daniel said, Rashi's adding in a point. They have to give some explanation about why this field might be a little bit better. Okay, right? That it's an irrigated field, and it's closer to the water, or maybe it's maybe better located. We're going to see in the Rosh. Next time we're going to see the Rosh on this Gemara. Okay, which is exactly the issue that Daniel raised. Do they just walk in and say, we think it's worth a lot more money. You want it, you got to pay. Otherwise, there's a lottery. Or they have to be able to justify why they shouldn't just be forced to give it away because it happens to be adjacent. Okay? So that's one din. Next, Amar Rabba. We'll just do this quickly. The Hilchas Rav Yosef. Daniel, you like that or not? Okay, meaning they can demand lottery as long as there is some justification that they're not, that they, again, it's the implication here is that it's an excuse. Okay. But at the end of the day, they have rights. And this is what we're going to say. Do they have equal rights in the field to all of the to Reuven? They have equal rights. And you want me to forgo my rights, you have to compensate me to forgo my rights. You can't say lo chaser. If I have rights that have value to you, you can't tell me I have to forgo them for nothing.
That doesn't sound any different from Levi in our whatever, over the last few weeks, who just bought the field and is now being in the previous discussions and is now being kicked off, right? He has rights. In fact, he bought the field. It doesn't seem like these brothers, if it's true that a shammai would come along and say all 4 fields are equal, it doesn't seem like these 4 brothers are in any better position than Levi traditionally was.
We will leave that. We will leave it with Dan's question and pick it up on Sunday. Remember, tomorrow we are not having the Chabur. Today we had it. We will pick it up on Wednesday. Have your Bava Basra and have your Rosh. Okay, the Rosh is Siman Mem Vav, I think it is. So I got it marked here. The Rosh is, we're going to do Rosh. It's in the middle of Siman Mem Vav. Okay, and it's all of this comes up. We could also do the Tosfos. The Rosh also quotes the Tosfos. Maybe we'll also see the Tosfos Ma'alinale, because that's the issue here. What are their rights? Where do we say Midas Dom, Kofid al Midas Dom, Zenen Evezelo Chaser? Where do we say Asisa Yasher Vahatov? This is where it gets really really sticky. Okay, so Bava Basra, we'll finish with Bava Basra next time, and then maybe we'll even get to the tour on this sugya. I'll send you the link which tour we're going to need, but we'll start with the Bava Basra, the Tosas, and the Rosh. Okay, all right, everybody. It's only Tuesday, so I wish you a good Shabbos already on Tuesday. But that's the next time. Okay,
Thank you.
All right, good.
Right.
Cold too.
Thank you.
Okay, cold too.